We had a 401 triple put on the board last week by Scott Crayton, an impressive performance.
Yeah, he got better every game, seemed to gain momentum. We'll see if that continues this week with a brand new partner, Gary Santora, and it is Joey Stella sitting atop the Tournament of Champion ladders. We'll see who he faces 3 weeks from today.
Scott Crayton's 401 last week, beating Joe Tavernese 372, and Crayton advances to take on Gary Santora this afternoon. Let's meet our bowlers first. Last week's winner, our number 6 seed from Weymouth, Massachusetts, Scott Crayton.
He's our man who makes his living with lobstering. Scott Crayton's average is 120. His high single, 192. Triple, a 455. Hanover Bowlodrome is the bowling center where Scott does his bowling.
And Scott will be taking on our number 4 seed this afternoon from Auburn, Massachusetts, Gary Santora.
No stranger to the cameras here at Channel 50 and WNDS. We've seen him, it seems, at least a half dozen times this year. Average of 128. A high single is 193. Gary Santora's high triple is 466. Bowls in a couple of different bowling centers out in the western or central part of Massachusetts, Colonial Lanes in Worcester and T-Burn Lanes in Auburn.
$550 in our triple strike jackpot. A cruise to nowhere to give away to one of you at the end of the show in our bonus ball contest. Let's get right to it. It's week number 2. The Tournament of Champions rolls on from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. We're going to keep coming back right after this.
Candlepin Bowling is brought to you by Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan, 354 Main Street, Salem, New Hampshire.
It's week 2 of the Tournament of Champions on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. We started with 6. We're down to 5 as Scott Crayton eliminated Joe Tavernese last week. Next in line, 4th seed Gary Santora, and Scott Crayton will be first to bowl on lane 34 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. We're underway with our second match, a 401 triple for Scott last week, and he starts out with a half Worcester.
I think he started out with a rather dubious leave last week as well and got nothing but better after that with a 401 triple.
Lots of cards and letters to get to that you have been sending to us over the past several weeks. We'll get to as many as we can.
Yeah, we got to because summer's coming and a lot of mail to clear out of the bag.
An 8-box for Scott. Jim Landers from Dedham, Massachusetts, writes that he was at a World War II reunion in Chicopee. On a rainy day, they went next door to a 10-pin house where his Midwestern friends were at home. But he wanted to take him candlepin bowling, and they went candlepin bowling the next day, and that was the talk of the banquet, the candlepin bowling. So, Jim, thank you very much for that nice note. We appreciate hearing from you. And keep on watching as Scott bounced one down.
Yeah. Scott looked out at the foul line expecting to see a speed bump there or something. Timing was just a bit off, and he'll take a 10.
Scott opened through the first 2 frames. Another nice card from Mary Ann Wiersma of Whitensville, Massachusetts, who looks forward to Saturdays and Sundays as they watch candlepin bowling with the entire family. And we appreciate hearing from the Wiersma family in Whitensville, Massachusetts. Thank you very much, and keep on watching Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS, and tell your friends. Here's Gary Santora's first.
Hey, look, our show is not as exciting as The Sopranos, but the language is a lot cleaner. And nobody gets killed.
Gary puts 8 in the spare.
Well, he is smooth, isn't he? One of the smoothest styles in the game today.
Gary bowls out of the Colonial Lanes in Worcester and T-Bird Lanes in Auburn. And he starts out with 2 marks in a row. $50 in bonus money for 3 marks back to back to back. $550 in the triple strike jackpot. And Scott Crayton with a 9-pin drop.
Wow, he avoided a train wreck on that one. 5-7-10. Only the 7 remains. A relatively routine spare for these guys.
And there's the first mark of the match for Scott Crayton. Want to say hello to Joe Arvilla, the 79-year-old fan of candlepin bowling from Gloucester, who's been watching bowling shows since the early days of Channel 5. Never misses this show. He's home recuperating from a recent illness. And look at Scott Crayton. That 7-pin is
that.
halfway off the alley. I think we can get a tight shot of that 7-pin as that piece of wood goes by, as that pin is halfway off the alley. It's on the edge. You can see it. I'm looking right down at it, and I can see it halfway out. And Scott will miss the spare.
Where he probably would have made it had the pin not moved a couple inches off the spot. But he also wanted to be careful not to touch the pin in the gutter first, because then he would have got 9, which
that
he got
made it
anyway.
A very tough shot, and he ends up with a 10 bucks. The crowd oohing and eyeing. You're going to see it one more time. Watch that 10-pin dance halfway out. There it goes, sliding out there. The edge is over the lip.
3-4 inches at least.
Over the lip.
Wow.
But it would not go.
That is ugly.
Put 2 in the spare.
I don't know if
double
there's
ugly when it's on a spare.
I don't know if there's a name for that. We know what the half Worcester is when it's on either side, the 2-8 or the 3-9. I'm not sure if the 1-5 has a name.
I think the bowlers have a name for it, but I don't think you can say it on television.
I think I heard it on The Sopranos last
probably. Gary does well to get an 8 box out of it. I mentioned Joe Arvilla, who's home recuperating from a recent illness. His son is sitting right in front of me, and you'll probably get a shot of him wearing a Martha's Vineyard t-shirt next time the camera pans the bowlers coming back the other way. And our best wishes to Joe Arvilla. Gary Santora tries to make the spare and has wood scattering all over the lane, but not able to take out the 7-pin. And a 10 box. Gary, a system administrator for Stratus Computers in Maynard, Massachusetts. Now Scott Crayton, we told you last week about his occupation as a full-time lobsterman out of Quincy. Scott right in the pocket. That's a very solid 9-pin that's still standing.
You mentioned
didn't move at all.
Yeah, we have some of the bowlers who have various businesses. Rich Clark always brings us produce when he's bowling during the producing season. And Steve Platt, Frito-Lay, brings us, Doritos and stuff like that. I didn't see Scott walk in with any lobsters today. They asked him about that.
He must have forgot them in the truck.
You think so? Did he forget what the protocol is? You got to grease the announcers if you want us to say nice things about you.
That's a 10 box for Scott Crayton. Scott in the pocket again. Not a lot to show for it. You got the 4, the 9, and the 10. Very unusual configuration. With some wood.
His only real option is to go for the pin on the right and hope for some kind of a deflection off the dead wood in front of the 4. That's a stretch.
He put it right through an opening that didn't appear to be big enough to put it through. But somehow it made it through. And he'll take a 9 box. 66 through 6 for Scott Crayton.
On his way to winning his title ladder, he beat Chris Bover, who will be on our show next week, Mike Morgan, and Steve Plant of Massachusetts. So he went through some pretty serious competition to get here today, and he disposed of Joe Tavernese last week, hoping to do the same to Santora today.
Nice note from Donald Stickney of Boscawen, New Hampshire, who's been watching Candlepin bowling for years. Another previous pin setter. One of many that we've heard from over the past several months. As Gary Santora puts a 10 box on the board. Mr. Stickney asks if we remove the bonus ball entries after every match. No, we do not. We keep them for the season, and we change them after every season. So after today's taping of our Tournament of Champions and all the matches that we do, we'll empty the bin and start all over again for next year.
That's right. We give the postcards to telemarketing organizations. No, we don't do that. We would never do that.
Gary puts an 8 on the board.
Dead even match, Dick, after 6, 66.
Scott Crayton missed the head pin on that one, but still gets a pretty good 6-pin fall and a spare opportunity here with some wood on the deck. That appears to be favorable. Has to hit the head pin here. That is key, and that is a spare. Watch it one more time. The head pin was the key. After that, the wood took care of the rest.
Scott Crayton with games of 125, 128, and 148 last week for a 401 triple. He got better as each game went along and has a nice 9 drop on his 6-frame spare.
Took forever for that 10-pin to go over, but it finally did. Now Scott surveys the wood. Not as easy as it looks here right now. He'll take the spare. Back-to-back marks for Scott Crayton. He has 3 spares in the first string. Gary Santora with 2 marks. They came in the first 2 boxes.
There's a trivia question for you, Dick Lutz, because we survey the past season of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Which bowler made the most appearances on our show? Most number of individual telecasts.
This past season.
Uh-huh.
Let me think on that one for a second as Gary goes for the spare and makes it. How about Scott Crayton? No?
Scott Crayton does not make the list.
No. All right, I surrender. Here's Gary Santora across to the Brooklyn side in the pocket, putting 7 in the spare.
Well, you figure we've done 24 shows prior to last week. With 5 appearances, Joe Stella. He was in a couple different ladders, and of course turns out to be our top seed in the Tournament of Champions. Our second most seen bowler this year is the man you're watching right now.
Gary Santora, yeah.
That's right, with 4 appearances, and a couple guys with 3 include Chris Bovair, who we'll see next week, and Rich Clark, who always seems to be in the hunt for the money.
Very close match in the first string. Here's Scott Crayton. A little too full on the head pin. Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV, made possible by a terrific crew who works here every week to bring it to you at home. Our director is Ken Knight. Working on audio is Don Cronin. On the tape machine is Dave McCarthy. Computer graphics being handled today by Larry Taylor. Paul Hunter is on video. And the camera crew of Jim McLean, Bob Dold, and Jeff Garcia bringing you all of the shots and all of the excitement of Candlepin Stars and Strikes in our Tournament of Champions on WNDS TV. Here, watch a replay right now as Scott Crayton makes a nice shot for a 10 box. Scott's average 120. He'll be close to that average in this first string. He'll miss the spare. He's at 117 with a ball to go.
Pulled up at the line and went to the left. 3, 6, 10 are still there.
And that'll be a 10 box. A 120 first string for Scott Crayton. I noticed you did that a lot in that string that I pummeled you a couple of weeks ago.
What string would that be? I don't seem to recall.
The one that we went head-to-head that I destroyed you.
Do you have any evidence that this ever occurred?
We still have that tape, that score sheet on tape, don't we, fellas? Somewhere back there. Here's Gary Santora. I know you've been clamoring for a rematch.
Well, I'm hoping that next season, our 4th together, you'll be kind enough and grant me a rematch.
Well, I'll tell you what, have your people call my people. We'll see if we can work it out.
Tell you what my people are going to call your people.
Gary Santora will get the spare.
My.
Didn't think it was going to go. But the 7-pin very unwillingly went over. On the spare, Santora on the head pin. Cannot break up the split. Puts 7 in the spare.
Even with the wood, very difficult shot.
He's going to try to cut it. and not make it. So he is at 117. And that's where it will end for Gary Santora, a 117 first string, and Scott Crayton will take a 3-pin lead into string number 2 in match number 2 of our Tournament of Champions as we roll on from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. Gary Santora ready to lead us off in string number 2. And he starts out with a pocket shot.
You mentioned the fine crew that we have on hand today from TV 50. Also want to mention our in-house scorekeeper for the bowlers who are watching today that can't see the monitors from their seats. Is a young man by the name of Paul Ouellette, who fills in for Chris Bovair whenever Chris bowls, and we're going to see Chris next week on the show, so we've given Chris the day off from his scoreboard duties, and Paul Ouellette does a terrific job keeping everything squared away for the folks here in the Leda Lanes gallery.
Gary Santora starts out with a spare, puts 7 in the spare, but leaves a tough shot.
That one got away from him. Got hung up on his hand, it looked like. Went into the left channel. 25 through 2.
Now Scott Crayton.
Well, he's gotten some great drops today on some pretty, bad hits, frankly. But he's got some really good pinfall, which certainly hasn't hurt him, as he takes a 3-pin lead into this second game.
And Scott picks up the mark.
So that'll add to his 3-pin lead with a fill of 8 or higher.
Nice note here from Alice Tossi. Alice is from, let me see if I've got the postmark here. And look at Scott. He is red hot. Look at that shot. Beautiful. By Scott Crayton. Alice writes that she's disappointed that Tom Morgan did not make it into the Tournament of Champions.
So is Mike Morgan. He doesn't get half of Tommy's money.
And she says she missed the couples competition when we had it on over the winter.
We'll do that again next season, won't we?
I believe we will.
Very popular diversion from the men's competition, right in the middle of the 6 ladder series.
Here's Alice's address. Alice is from Lynn, Massachusetts. No wonder she misses Tom Morgan. And just a loyal watcher. Writes a 4-page letter here, Michael. It's Gary Santora with back-to-back spares, responds nicely.
Looks like she's written it on some stolen stationery from someplace.
And now Scott Crayton. They're continuing to drop.
So what was I saying about this terrific pinfall he's getting today?
He's doing everything. He's really on fire. Now looking, this is a $50 shot for Scott Crayton. As we're trying to give away some bonus money here, Scott will not put $50 in his pocket. Just missed it.
Scott would love to be what's probably the first bowler ever to go from the number 6 seed to number 1 in the Tournament of Champions. And I have some statistics for you along those lines from this past season as we compile a look back at this past Candlepin Stars and Strikes season. Number 1 seeds only won once this year, Dick, going to the Tournament of Champions, whereas last year on our show, every Tournament of Champions qualifier, in other words, every ladder winner, was a top seed. This year, only one top seed made it. 2 from the number 2 position, 2 from the number 3 position. The number 4 position didn't provide any bowlers today or the last couple years. The number 4 seed is the one spot that has never gone on to win a ladder series. And this season, the number 5 spot was won by only one man, and that was Mike Pooley, who went from number 5 to number 1.
And Scott missed the spare, had to settle for a 10 box as we go to the break. A very tight match. We're coming back at the halfway point. From Leda Lanes in Nashua, it's the Tournament of Champions on WNDS TV. All right, Gary Santora is working on a double mark, looking for some bonus money. We haven't given away any bonus money in this match yet. We've come close a couple of times. Let's see if we can do it here. He missed the head pin. He's got the 1, the 3, and the 7 with a piece of wood in front of the 7, but it's rolling out kind of far. May not be a factor.
The letter you read from Alice asks a question that maybe you didn't see or you didn't mention. Alice asks the following question. My daughter asked me to ask you, when do we get there for a front seat?
Well, we tape on Tuesday, so your best bet is to get here on Monday.
And actually, of course, we won't begin taping until September. We start taping around 10 in the morning. Folks start arriving, what, about 7:30?
Yeah, some people do get here that early in the morning. The regulars,
yeah,
and there are a few, know when to get here. They have fun. The coffee and donuts are here, put out by Ray Simoneau and Sean Howard and the staff at Leda Lanes. They do a terrific job accommodating our fans. There's Gary Santora, great shot, not able to convert. Gary raises his arms to the sky in frustration. Thought he had it. And that'll be a 10 box for Gary Santora.
Gary enjoys hockey, golfing, and water skiing. So he's a 3-season sport kind of guy.
Scott Crayton.
I think we're going to weigh Scott's bowling balls at the end of the match today. See that they don't exceed 2 pounds 7 ounces. The way those pins are falling.
Will he get it?
Even the pin boy threw a pin down. Missed the 9.
$10 box for Scott. So both bowlers have cooled off a little bit. I want to remind you about the bonus ball contest and your opportunity to be part of the action on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. We have the bonus ball contest after every match, a chance to win a cash prize. The second card pulled out wins 10 strings of bowling here at Leda Lane. And Scott missed the spare, and for the last several weeks we've been giving away a cruise to nowhere courtesy of the Travel Connection of Plastow, New Hampshire. There's a 10 box for Scott. The cruise to nowhere departs Boston May 31st through September, departing Fridays at 7, returning to Boston Sundays at 5. It's all inclusive. This is the real deal. It includes entertainment, lodging, food. The casino opens once you hit international waters, and they'll meet or beat any price at the Travel Connection in Plastow, New Hampshire. For more information on these cruises to nowhere, you can call 603-382-5330, 603-382-5330. The Travel Connection of Plastow, New Hampshire, and Gary Santora with another mark, his 4th mark of the 2nd string.
Nice split conversion right there, adding to his lead, which was 3 pins after completed frames in the 2nd game.
A little bit thin on the Brooklyn side of the head pin, puts 6 in the spare.
Three, 5, 6, and the 10.
Not going to make it. Threw it away as soon as it left his hand.
Yeah, he knew it. Too far to the right, leaving the same pins he just made as a spare in the previous frame.
And Gary will put an 8 box on the board. He is at 103 through 8. Scott Crayton.
Well, there's a nasty split with no apparent help from the wood. 6, 7, 10. Has to make a cut shot.
Here's a question for you, Michael. Former official with the Bowling Association. You were secretary for many years, were you not?
I don't know. I guess what the heck was I? I was kind of.
You had a title of some sort.
I had some kind of title. I try to forget. A lot of work, but it was fun. What do they need?
Susanna Nickel of Natick, Massachusetts writes, to paraphrase Susanna's question, as Scott Crayton strikes in the 8th frame.
Strikes have been a premium the last couple of weeks. Haven't seen too many of them.
That one right in the pocket. Nice strike for Scott. And again, paraphrasing Sue Nichols' question, is it better to throw the ball harder or slower? Does it make a difference?
That is an age-old question that many people will debate. Probably harder, just judging by the fact that most men throw harder and tend to average a little bit higher than women who don't throw the ball quite as hard. But if you've got a nice soft touch, accuracy is really the key more than brute force most of the time. That's just my take on it. I'm sure you'll get, you know, for every person, you'll get a different response.
Right through the goalposts. An 8 box for Gary Santora. He's at 111 through 9.
The ultimate answer is whatever you're comfortable with. Nobody should try to talk you into throwing it harder or softer. If you're in a comfort level, go with it.
Sue Nichols' point that she makes is that she's seen people throw hard, make what appears to be a good shot,
right,
and chop 1 or 2, and
that's right,
not score, and see people throw less hard. And there's a shot for Gary Santora. That's one he didn't expect to make, and he did make. Watch it again. Off the sideboard. It looked like it was going to go behind it. Just caught it and tripped it over.
Now, Gary doesn't throw an especially hard or fast ball, but he's very accurate. Has a great follow through and is usually right around the head pin. Except this time.
This is on the spare. He'll put 6. He'll put 7. And it will be a 7 in the spare. A 128 second string for Gary Santora. 2-string total of 245. And Scott Crayton is working on a strike. He threw it past the head pin, a half Worcester, but he still has another ball to go to fill the strike. We're heading toward a very close match after 2 strings. Scott Crayton will end up putting 6, 7, 8 in the strike.
It's a pretty good fill considering he had a half Worcester to start.
And that'll be a 10 box. What a great shot that was for Scott Crayton,
who had 401 last week to eliminate our first tournament of champion contender, and that was Joe Tavernese, beating Joe by 29 pins. Joe had 372. Well, that could have certainly gone. 4-pin stayed. He had a strike just 2 frames ago. Very similar hit where the 4-pin was tripped out from a pin off the wall. That hurts.
A 9 box for Scott. A 118 second string. A 7-pin lead in the match for Gary Santora as we head to the 3rd and final string of match number 2 in the Tournament of Champions on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. We're coming right back to Leda Lanes.
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is brought to you by Concord Group Insurance.
Scott Crayton will be the first to bowl in the 3rd string, trailing Gary Santora by 7 pins. And he starts out with a pocket shot and a spare opportunity. Scott won the 1st string by 3 pins. Lost the 2nd string by 10 pins. Thus the 7-pin advantage for Gary Santora And look at that. He's not able to convert. You would think it would be impossible to miss. A 10 box for Scott Crayton to start out. There's Scott with a strike.
I don't think Gary Santora's had a strike today yet. Scott's only had a couple of them. So we take a look at Gary Santora addressing the pins at the start of the third string.
Got a nice note from Mary Bartone of Canton, a frequent writer and a longtime viewer of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. And she says it's good to see Mike Morin talking again. Oh, look at Gary miss that spare. Another one that you thought was impossible to miss. Gary talking to himself and to the crowd as he comes back. And a 10 box for Gary. She also writes that she remembers watching Candlepin bowling on Channel 27 in Worcester, which is now a Spanish station, and you watch the miss again. Watch the wood go flying by. Oh. Unbelievable. Now Gary bounces one down. That one got away. And she mentions that Bob Foraker was the host of that Candlepin show on Channel 27, which I remember really quite well. And she asks, what is he doing now? Bob Foraker's on radio in Worcester still, and is the voice of Holy Cross football and basketball. It has been for many years. And she also mentions that I beat you by 4 pins in our head-to-head competition. So she's been paying attention.
So I guess it really did happen after all.
It sure did. I remember it. I was there.
That was maybe the happiest day of your life.
Back-to-back 10s.
I have to admit, you did surprise me. I thought you'd be winging about a 64 down there, and you surprised us all.
After my wedding, after my marriage to my wife and the birth of my 3 children, I think beating
me, huh?
would come right after that.
You've had a rather uneventful life, I take it. Well, I'm glad I could bring such joy into your life, Dick.
Put a 9 in the strike for Scott. And a 9 box.
Tell you who's happy, and I don't know the actual outcome of the signing of the bill by the governor, but I do know that the state legislature had put a bill on the table, something that Candlepin bowling proprietors in Massachusetts have been going for a long time, and that is to have alcohol served in the actual bowling area as opposed to just having it in the bar or the licensed area, the tavern. Whereas Connecticut and New York, both surrounding states, and I believe Vermont as well, has all along allowed that, and Massachusetts has been the one state where you couldn't take your drink out into the lanes. I know that the legislature pretty unanimously, or close to that, put that bill on the governor's desk, and as of this moment, I wasn't following it to find out if it actually passed. I believe it did, and I'm not sure when it takes effect, but that they're hoping that that's one small thing that helps people come back to the game. I'm not sure if that's the answer, but it doesn't hurt, I guess.
Gary Santora, half Worcester on lane 34. We're going to be pretty close at the break. Gary will take a 9 box.
Yeah, he's going to need a mark here to pull up even with Scott Crayton, who's been slowly creeping ahead here by virtue of a 2nd frame strike. The only mark between these 2 bowlers this game. He's been going right a lot on lane 33 today.
Yep. 4 horsemen left side. Not gonna make it. So he will be open for the 4th straight frame in the 3rd string. 10 box. We'll go to the break. A 2-pin lead in the match for Scott Crayton. 6 frames remain. Match number 2. The Tournament of Champions rolls on from Lido Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on WNDS TV. All right, Scott Crayton in box 5 of the 3rd string. Scott with a 2-pin lead. Crossed over to the Brooklyn side and leaves himself a spare opportunity with some wood.
And some potential for difficulty if he doesn't hit this quite right.
And here's the difficulty right there. As we head down the home stretch of this 3rd string, you might be thinking of what to do for lunch or dinner on this afternoon. May I suggest to you the Kahala Chinese Restaurant and Lounge right next door to Leda Lanes, 350 Amherst Street, Route 101A in Nashua, New Hampshire. They have a wonderful lunch buffet during the week, Monday through Saturday from 11:45 to 2 p.m., just $5.95. The dinner buffet Thursday from 5 to 8, and Sunday afternoons from 12 noon to 8 p.m. is just $8.95. They do a terrific job, really nice people. Hope you'll stop in the next time you're in the area at the Kahala Chinese Restaurant and Lounge, 350 Amherst Street in Nashua. Exit 7 west if you're coming from the south on the Everett Turnpike. Take exit 8 if you're coming from the Manchester area. Look for Leda Lanes, and right next door to Leda Lanes is the Kahala Chinese Restaurant and Lounge, 350 Amherst Street, Nashua, New Hampshire.
We love the Kahala. Service is great. We can eat as much as we want. We bring all our friends with us every time we take.
Well, the open frames put on the board by Scott, leaving the door open for Gary Santora, but Gary has a tough shot right here. Every which way but the 7-pin.
And that's been the story of his life, this 3rd string. Yet the match is just, you know, single-digit margin still.
And that'll be a 9 box for Gary Santora.
Of course, Scott's left the door open for him. He's had only 1 mark. Nobody's hitting 400 this week, I can assure you of that.
Not important.
Not important is right, unless you want a lot of extra bonus money.
Again to the right on lane 33, as he has been.
We haven't given any away, have we?
Not
today?
in this match. No bonus money.
Means we can leave a bigger tip at the Kahala today. That extra dough.
4 horsemen. Gary Santora will not get it. The 7-pin still stands. Still stands as the wood rolls by it.
Only a 13-inch pin. Too short. Too bad one of the 15-inchers wasn't rolling along.
That will be
nope, that's a 9
box.
Look at this.
2-pin lead for Scott Crayton with 4 boxes remaining. And look at this. Scott has a tough shot there. This is the 2, the 7, and the 10 with no wood to speak of.
It's a beautiful shot when you hit it.
He's not going to make it. He's going to be open one more time.
Nope.
That'll be an 8 box. I want to thank Emmett Horgan and everybody at Rockingham Toyota, Dodge, Nissan, and Honda for their sponsorship of Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. The association has been long and productive and beneficial to all. We want to thank all of them. The Rockingham family of dealers invite you to stop in and see their large selection of quality cars and state-of-the-art service. Rockingham Honda, located at Route 28 and Route 111 intersection in Salem, New Hampshire, is the newest member of the Rockingham family of dealerships. Make sure you stop in soon at Rockingham Toyota, Dodge, Nissan, and Honda in Salem, New Hampshire. 10 box for Scott Crayton. The door is open for Gary Santora. Can he walk through it?
The door is wide open.
On the head pin, and look at this. The 5, 7, 10.
The difference between Scott and Gary today is Scott has gotten the benefit of some really good pinfall, and Gary has gotten terrible breaks. Hit the head pin on that shot.
Now Gary takes the 5 pin. Gary without a mark in the third string thus far. 9. He's at 66 through 7. He'll need a mark to break 100. You're talking about one of the premier bowlers.
And he has been the last couple of years that we've been doing the show. Makes a good showing every season.
This time on the head pin, another split. Gary with a 128 average, a high single of 193, a high triple of 466. A 26-year veteran of Candlepin bowling. Not able to convert the spare. He'll be open again. It's a 1-pin match with 2 boxes to go.
And only one mark, Dick, this game between the two bowlers. A second frame strike for Scott Crayton. Everything else 8s, 9s, and 10s.
Scott Crayton on the head pin and a strike. Pressure.
Boy, the timing
did not phase him at all.
Timing couldn't have been any better for that. Now a chance to fill it in the 10th frame.
Now he threw a pocket shot. He really threw a great ball right in the 1-3 pocket, and look what he has to show for it. The 7 and the 10 with a piece of wood in the middle.
Not very helpful at all. Yep.
He's gonna lose that pin.
So an 8 for a fill on the strike. And a possible 9 for the frame.
And it is a 9 box.
And about 52 pins lower than last week's 401 triple. He has 349.
111, third string, a 349 for Scott Crayton. You know the math. Gary needs a mark.
He's not making it easy on himself. It's the 1,
not an
2,
easy
and
shot.
7.
It's still standing. So we're going down to the final frame, and Gary Santora will need a mark. He's at 86. He needs a mark and an 8 to tie and a 9 to win.
Exciting finish. The scoring isn't high, but boy, it's been close.
Right in the pocket and a strike.
Well, he's got 2 balls now to get 9 pins. 2 chances to get 9 to win this thing.
8's the important number. 8's the number to tie.
To tie. But certainly he'd like to avoid any kind of a 2-frame roll-off, which we would have to do if he gets an 8 fill. He's got 2 balls to win this thing. His only mark of the match in the 10th frame. Oh, boy.
Threw it away. That's not a good ball.
Well, this is
He only
it.
got 3. We're down to it. He needs an 8 to tie, a 9 to win.
Scott Crayton can only sit and watch and sweat profusely. Nope.
It's an 8. It's a tie.
Got a tie.
A 104 for Gary Santora. A 2-box roll-off is coming up. And it's the first time that's happened in our tenure.
No, actually it did happen a couple of years ago. Yeah. Going to bowl 2 frames.
Scott Crayton, a 2-box roll-off, and Scott will go first.
So I'm going to clear the scoreboard here, folks.
2 boxes.
It won't clear after 3 games. We'll keep you posted.
I got
on
it
the
here.
Score.
You'll be able to tell.
Yep.
2-box roll-off. Scott with a strike. They tied at 349. Watch Scott Crayton in the first box of the roll-off. Now back to live action, and Scott working on a strike. Don't forget 2 balls to fill the strike. And it will be a 9 in the strike. And a 10. 10 box. 29 is the number that Gary Santora has to shoot for. Gary needs a mark. Goes without saying.
Well, he did it last time in the 10th frame when he needed to.
Gary Santora.
That's a tough spare without any wood to help him out.
That piece of wood is rolling over.
There you go.
Watch it.
Yeah.
Well, it made it a little tougher, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it did. Because the ball won't get quite the bouncing action that he might have gotten with the 5-pin still up there.
You've got a sleeper there.
This
You've got
is,
the 2 and the 8.
This is a tough shot.
And that's why it's a tough shot. Right there.
It's basically the half Worcester. You think, boy, it sure is easy when I got a full set of pins, but I can't make it when it's just those 2 pins.
Well, a 10 box for Gary Santora. He needs a mark and a 9. We've been there before.
Mark and a 9 to tie.
9 to tie.
Or a spare strike to win it, or strike spare, either way. We can't show you any scoring on the, we don't have the program for a tie in our computerized scoring, so we'll keep you posted.
Gary on the head pin. Look at this.
Yeah, that would have been big if he could have struck, because now the pressure's on to make this and then throw a strike to win.
Ball, yeah. We're down to 1 ball.
9 to tie, right, Dick?
9 to tie.
And we do it again.
10 to win. A strike to win.
Now, last week at the end of the show, we had 9 minutes that we had to fill because the bowlers went so fast.
Don't think it'll happen this week.
I'm not really sure how we stand on time. The crowd is definitely jazzed to see an overtime match with 2 extra frames.
All right, here's Gary Santora. Needs a 9 to tie.
Nope.
Threw it away. He'll put a 6. Scott Crayton will advance with the overtime win over Gary Santora. We'll come back to meet the bowlers and set you up for next week when we return to Leda Lanes in Nashville on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV.